Hi, my name's Christian Pavlovich, and I run the Javelin Breakdown. And today I want to talk to you about the javelin throw. I want to talk specifically about spikes and how the rules that govern the kind of spikes you can put in your shoe, the length that you can use, looks different at the world athletics, to college level, to high school level, and how that discrepancy hurts javelin throwers and why we should see consistency across the board. So first I want to briefly touch on the technique in the javelin throw and why the technique puts javelin throwers in a unique position, like high jumpers, that requires a different kind of equipment rule. And so the javelin shoes help support us in executing that technique. So javelin throwers accelerate down the runway, and when they get to the end of the runway, they want to come to a stop very quickly. And the position they come into is something along the lines of where I'm at right now. And as you can see, my front leg is extending really far away from my center of mass. So there's a tremendous amount of force when this foot meets the ground. So in addition to what my body can handle, this shoe, or in the case in a competition, my javelin spike and the 11 spikes in my shoe, their ability to keep me in this position so I can deliver the javelin and try to transfer my energy into the javelin. There's a lot of demands going on here. So what could go wrong in this moment is that this foot does not stay where it is, and it slides, right? Or it catches and drifts up. And so we lose this anchor, this stability point, which basically takes away our ability to transfer energy, which makes our throw go much shorter than it would have had our foot not moved. It's also really dangerous because now there's energy not going up and out into the javelin, and it could go somewhere in our body and cause destruction, right? We could tear, strain, something not good could happen. So it's very important that this foot does not move, but it can move, and it does move at the higher levels of sport, both professionally, collegiately, and at the high school level as your technique improves. So I see two culprits for why your block foot might slip. One is the surface that you're on is really old and torn up, or two, it's one of those really new surfaces that's fast and is really good at dealing with this kind of thing, but not very good at, say, the high jump takeoff or the javelin plant, right? And so there's a conversation to be had around surfaces and updating those, as well as surface manufacturers producing a surface that's good for high jump and good for javelin. But that's a separate conversation. The second culprit is going to be the equipment, the shoes, and the length of spike that's in those shoes. And so the length spike that most people use for running and jumping is going to be, in English, a 1/4 inch. And so that 1/4 inch spike is sufficient for most events. But in the case of the javelin and the high jump, as I've described, we're in this extreme position, and the strain on the body and on the equipment is immense. And if it doesn't hold, the potential damages are not good. And so we want to mitigate that if we can. And it's really simple. There's longer spikes, and those longer spikes provide a little bit more bite, and as a result, they cut down on the chance that you're going to lose that position significantly. How do I know this? Well, anecdotally, one, I've been using them, and two, I've surveyed professional athletes, and professional javelin throwers and high jumpers alike say that that longer spike is way more supportive, and that's why they use it. Now, how can they do this? So I'm going to read from the World Athletics Rulebook. That part of each spike which projects from the sole or the heel will not exceed 9 millimeters, for indoor 6 millimeters, except in the high jump and javelin throw, where it must not exceed 12 millimeters. The spike must be constructed that it will, at least for the half of its length closest to the tip, fit through a square-sided 4 millimeter gauge. If the track manufacturer or the stadium operator mandates a lesser maximum or prohibits the use of certain shaped spikes, this will be applied and the athletes notified accordingly. So there you have it. The World Athletics Rulebook says that you can wear up to 12 millimeters in the high jump or the javelin. Now this can be limited if the track manufacturer or the stadium operators say otherwise, but we haven't seen this happen to my knowledge. So the World Athletics Rule is going to allow that spike, and if you send a message to your favorite athlete in those disciplines and they get back to you, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 they're going to say they use that longer spike, and that's what I've experienced in my research. And they're using that, like I've explained, because it gives that confidence that in this position, that longer spike is going to pierce the track and give them the support so that this position is uncompromised, because they're coming so fast and producing so much force that they need a little bit more length in the shoe to give the bite so that they can do their thing safely. And so if the pros are doing that, why aren't the college and high school kids? So let's take a look. Here's the college rules. When a competition is conducted on a synthetic surface, the part of each spike that projects beyond the plane where the sole or heel touches the surface must not exceed 9 millimeters, except in the high jump or javelin throw, in which it must not exceed 12 millimeters. Spikes shall have a maximum diameter of 4 millimeters for the 1/2 of their total length closest to the tip. Facility considerations may further limit the type of spikes allowed. So the college rules sound a lot like the rules I read from the World Athletics page. However, the college rules have that sentence that says that facility limitations may further dictate the type of spike used. And facility considerations basically means the meet director, which basically means the head coach, which is typically a distance coach, a sprint coach, or a jump coach. Not someone familiar with the demands of the javelin and an understanding that at the elite level, that longer spike is potentially the better option. So in my college career, it was very frustrating. I constantly had to email coaches and go talk to coaches at meets and basically plead with them to let me wear longer spikes, even though the rules allow it. They just had to be the ones to say okay, and trying to explain to them the demands of the event and how my longer spike wasn't a threat to their runway. It was actually going to keep their runway safer. And if they made me wear the longer spikes, the chances that I would hit my block and my block foot would slide and tear up more of their runway was greater with the smaller spike than with the longer spike. And so that was just extremely frustrating. So the way this college rule is written, it puts a lot of trust in coaches to make a decision that supports the athletes. And most of the time, I think ignorance wins out, and coaches just don't know and understand the event and understand that the option to have that longer spike is really important. So now that we've talked about the World Athletics and college rules, I hope you're starting to see my appeal to logic here. This inconsistency in rules is creating a disparity in what's available from meet to meet, and so you'll be changing your spikes from week to week. It just doesn't make sense. Imagine if pole vaulters had to use certain brand poles certain weeks, or certain hurdles that had the weight distribution and the way they tip differently from facility to facility. Like these kinds of things, it just doesn't make sense. And so now we can jump down to the high school level. The NFHS rules don't say anything. They just say that the games committee makes the decision. So now, again, you're leaving the decision in the hands of someone who's probably not educated on the javelin at a technical level, and understanding that your better high school kids are going to get into positions that their 1/4 inch spikes aren't capable of handling. And I have seen this and experienced it myself firsthand. When I was in high school, I slipped because of the 1/4 inch spikes, and it was extremely frustrating. And I think I could have thrown further had I had longer spikes and not slipped and not faced that mental barrier of like, am I going to hold my block? Should I hold back? Should I slow down? That was a challenge for me, and that continues to be for my athletes. So last year, district champion Jeremiah, before his 3rd round throw that won him the competition, his 2nd throw you're seeing here, his foot slips almost a foot, and he hits a really solid position, but those 1/4 inch spikes didn't bite, even on the freshly resurfaced front of runway. So that's nothing to do with the runway there. That shoe, those spikes were not capable of holding that position. Or look here, you got Miles Higgins, AA runner-up at States last year. He has a throw that could have been really good. Hits his position, foot skips up. Again, the demand that these athletes are putting on their body and the equipment is high, and that small spike that is sufficient for our sprinters and jumpers is insufficient for the javelin or the high jump for that matter. And so I implore you, if you've watched this far, thank you. Pass this on to your coaches. Pass this on to the committees that make decisions, and let's appeal to logic here. The pros are wearing the longer spike. The pro rule book allows for the longer spike. If you're an NCAA coach, please, let's get rid of that sentence that says that facilities can further limit what athletes can use. The longer spike is a better option for most people, and I think the fact that it's in the rules as an option should mean that it should always be an option. Where else in the rules do we allow our athletes to sometimes use something, but sometimes not? It just doesn't make sense. If we're going to say that a longer spike is an approved piece of equipment, which I believe it should be, then it should always be. And so again, I implore you to share this and spread it around so that we can see that change occur, because as javelin grows, as more states in the United States add it as an event in high school track, as the level of throwing increases, you're going to have more kids, more guys and girls throwing at a level that demands more out of their block and is going to demand more out of their shoe, and the spikes in that shoe, and you're going to have kids slip, you're going to have kids get hurt, you're going to have surfaces get worn out faster. And so it's just a no-brainer to me to make a change that we can see consistency from level to level. The equipment available here should be available here, and so on. So I thank you for your time. If you have questions, please reach out to me. You can comment here, or you can email me at thejavelinbreakdown@gmail.com. And I hope over the next couple years we can see some change and some consistency for our javelin throwers. Thank you.